Sage Wonder coming at you from my van down by the river. So, if God is love, don't you think God must hate war? This is a question that has plagued me for my entire life. It's one of the mysteries I still haven't figured out. Does God hate war? I mean, God hates injustice. He hates violence. He hates death. I mean, I think the Bible's clear that death is the final enemy, the ultimate enemy. And so I think this is where I come to this conclusion, that I think although Jesus would be against war, clearly God the Father has led the Israelites into war on more than one occasion in the Old Testament, and even commanded the Israelites at various times to not just kill their enemies, but kill their enemies' families too. To kill every man, every woman, and every child, even infants. How do you... This is one of the biggest questions that I've had, and I'm telling you, I'm not an ignorant man when it comes to the Bible. I've read it front to back numerous times. I've studied it up one side and down the other. I've been in and out of the Word my whole life. Remember, I'm a preacher's kid and a trained preacher. I have 3 different ordinations that overlap one another. I've been to seminary, and I still can't come to terms with the differences between Jesus Christ from the New Testament and the Israelite God of the Old Testament. How can someone that says no greater love does a man have than to lay down his life for his friends, which is what Jesus literally did on the cross for his disciples, so that they wouldn't be hunted down. He gave himself up so there wouldn't be a war. And then the God of the Old Testament, who, one of his prophets once had a bear eat a young man for making fun of his bald spot. So, I believe it was Elijah or Elisha. I always get those two confused. I mean, it's easy to get them confused. I believe it was Elisha who was, out and about, and some young men started making fun of him for being bald-headed. And he called up a bear to come over and eat the kid. And eat these boys. I think he ate one. I think one at least was killed. Maybe I should go back and look at the story before I make a video. But it just kind of popped in my head as I'm talking about this, that, that's a big difference. The God that would destroy the earth with a flood, and Jesus who says, lay down your life for your friend. Don't they seem like completely opposite ideas? I'm not trying to make a point here other than I'm bamboozled. I've always been bamboozled. In fact, it's one of those questions that led me to debate and engage in discourse with some of the greatest minds in Christendom. That I set out very early in life, even before I was old enough to leave home, to engage these people because they were coming to my house, because my dad was a preacher and an amazing fisherman, and all of the greatest minds in Christendom were coming to my little old house in the middle of nowhere in Oregon, because my dad could put them on 6-foot-long sturgeon that they could catch by the boatload. Or he'd put them in a spot where they could catch, 500 crappie in an afternoon. And so, yeah, the thing is, I engaged these people and they didn't have the answers either. Do you have the answers? Is there anyone out there that can explain to me the vastly different persona and personality of Christ and the God of the Old Testament? And there is an idea that is not orthodox and it is not biblical, but it is logical. And the concept is that maybe Jesus' religion is something completely separate from the Israelite religion of Judaism, and that it bears no resemblance at all for a reason, and that maybe there's a different message in what Jesus taught. And you get Christianity, modern Christianity, when you mix Judaism and Christianity. But maybe that's not what he was trying to do, because honestly, the message of wrath has been replaced with the message of forgiveness and grace. The message of the Old Testament of war and conquering and spreading your seed, that it's been replaced with a message of pursuing internal peace and separating yourself from the rest of the world. It's all very different. It's just different. You really can't. It's just I've always had a very difficult time aligning those. How do you do it? I think most of you do it just by closing your eyes and going la 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 la. Refuse to think about that, which worked for me for a long time. But you can only carry that on for so long until you have to ask the question: is Christianity a separate religion? And as it's practiced today, is it what Christ intended? Because I believe that the one central message in Jesus Christ's teaching is love. And one of the central messages in Judaism is warfare, enslavement, and chaos. It's what the Old Testament's built on. But Jesus was all about peace, love, harmony, taking care of people in need, giving away everything and loving each other. The end of materialism, the end of conquering, the end of strife. How do you mix those two? Help me out, because, I'm over 50 and I'm running out of time, and I've been looking for like 45 years for an answer to this question. And now I have the internet. So I don't care if you're a great mind or a small one. If you can make those two ideas for me, I'd love to hear it, because it's at the core center of some of my confusion about who I am as a Christian and what it means to follow Christ and how I'm supposed to be. Am I supposed to be a man of peace or a man of conquering, a man of war? The Old Testament God didn't take crud from nobody. And Jesus said that it's better to lay down your life than it is to fight back. I'm not sure I even understand that. It's so hard to understand. It's like Jesus is asking us to do something that's against human nature. So, I think the world would be such a better place if we could do what Jesus did and do the things he told us to do. But sometimes the things he told us to do, like forgiving, are completely in opposition to the Old Testament. It says things like an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. But to quote Gandhi, an eye for an eye leaves the whole world blind. Thanks for listening.